Berlin, Germany, 1995, a woman asks Michael Berg what his plans are for the evening. He tells her he's seeing his daughter. Annoyed that he kept it a secret, the woman leaves. Michael remembers the time when he was younger. It is 1958 in Neustadt, West Germany, and he has just gotten off a train. Walking in the rain, Michael vomits on a street corner and sits down on a bench. Suddenly, a woman approaches and helps him. Michael begins to sob, prompting the woman to hug him. She helps him get home and says goodbye. Shortly after he's home, Michael gets scarlet fever and becomes bedridden for a few months. He busies himself with collecting stamps. When he feels better, he returns to the street, where he meets the woman and brings her flowers. He arrives at the woman's home, and she nonchalantly greets him. Michael thanks her and leaves. The woman stops him and tells him she'll walk with him because she needs to go to work. Michael gets asked to stay in the hall. He discovers the woman works as a train conductor. Michael peeps at her while she changes but gets caught. Out of awkwardness, Michael hurriedly leaves. The following day, Michael goes to her home after her shift. She sees him and asks him to fill 2 buckets of coal. Seeing how dirty Michael has gotten, the woman tells him to take off his clothes as she prepares him for a bath. Michael takes a bath, and the woman offers him a towel. However, as he dries off, she surprises him, and they make out. Michael is nervous, but the woman leads him. At home, Michael seems amusingly distracted. His father reprimands him for being late, but Michael explains he got lost in town. The next day, after school, Michael runs to the woman's home, and they immediately start making out. The woman teaches him how to perform in bed. Later, Michael asks what her name is. Although she hesitates, the woman introduces herself as Hannah, and the two get acquainted. Soon, Michael and Hannah frequently see each other. Michael shares he's been studying Latin and Greek. Michael tells her he's been studying a play by Gotthold Ephraim Lessing and gives Hannah the book, but she insists on listening instead. Michael recites the play while Hannah listens intently. Hannah tells him he's good at reading. In the evening, Michael surprises Hannah at work, thinking she'll appreciate his presence. However, she seems surprised and disapproving. Michael waits for Hannah at her doorstep, but she becomes ballistic, and the two argue. Eventually, Hannah tells Michael he doesn't matter to her. Michael leaves, cries in the hallway, and returns to apologize. The two make up, and Hannah tells him she didn't mean what she said. Michael tells her he brought a book, The Odyssey, by Homer. Hannah negotiates that Michael should read her a book first before they make love. This becomes a regular occurrence, with Hannah laughing and even crying at the stories that Michael reads. Soon, Michael asks her if she has a day off so they can go on a cycling trip for 2 days. Michael sells off his stamp collection to get funds for the trip. Eventually, the two go on their trip and eat at a nearby restaurant. Hannah hesitates to order and tells Michael she'll have what he's having. After the two eat, the waitress tells Michael she hoped his mother appreciated the meal. Michael tells her that his mother appreciates it very much, then proceeds to kiss Hannah on the lips. Eventually, the two come across a church. Michael sees Hannah listening to the choir while she's crying. Later, Michael writes her a poem while Hannah swims in the river. Hannah becomes intrigued and asks Michael to read it to him, but he asks for a day to finish it. In the present day, Michael remembers the poems and scours through his notebook. He drives late to a court hearing. In the past, while his male classmates are ogling their new female classmates, Michael ignores them. Sophie introduces herself to Michael, but he just says hello. In class, Michael becomes distracted by Sophie's presence, prompting their teacher to call his attention and tell him he's meant to study Homer, not Sophie. As the class enjoys a swim, Michael leaves when Sophie arrives. She wonders why he's leaving early. Michael arrives at Hannah's house, apologetic for being late. He reads her a new book called Lady with a Little Dog by Anton Chekhov. Soon, Hannah gets promoted and will be working in the office. Michael's birthday arrives, and his friends throw him a birthday party. However, Michael apologizes and leaves early because he would go to her. At Hannah's place, Hannah stops Michael from reading. Michael becomes annoyed, as everything has to be on Hannah's terms. The two get into a fight. Still, Hannah insists he reads War and Peace. Later, Hannah gives him a bath, and the two passionately make love. Hannah then tells him to return to his friends. Michael rejoins his friends, but he seems distracted. Sophie asks him, but Michael gets up and leaves. Meanwhile, Hannah packs her bags and leaves. Michael returns to Hannah's place only to find it empty. Grief-stricken, Michael sleeps on the bed they used to share. He comes home the next day to his worried family. Present-day Michael seems distracted. He meets with Julia, his daughter, and they talk about their difficulties as a family. In the past, Michael now attends law school. It has now been 8 years since he last saw Hannah. Michael flirts with a girl from his class. Their law professor named Roll takes them to a court hearing. Outside of the building, there are lots of police and demonstrators. While gathering his pen, Michael overhears the defendant's name, Hannah Schmitz. Michael learns that Hannah joined the SS and worked as a guard in Auschwitz. As a defendant, she explains she didn't know what the job entailed when she applied. Roll asks what the class thought about the hearing. While his colleague thinks it's exciting, Michael naturally seems confused. While his classmates engage in the party, Michael isolates himself, pondering about his unlikely reunion with Hannah. The following day, Roll explains the people who worked in Auschwitz shouldn't be convicted for simply working there. Roll emphasizes there should be criminal intent. In Hannah's court hearing, she incriminates herself by admitting that she took part in the selection process of women who got sent to their deaths at Auschwitz. Later, a survivor from the camp points to the defendants who made the brutal selection process. She points to Hannah and reveals that Hannah chose the women differently. She took the weak women, seemingly to protect them, and asked them to read to her. Afterward, Hannah would dispatch these women. Hannah struggles to hold back her tears. Distraught, Michael leaves the courtroom and takes a break outside. As the court continues, it is revealed that the defendants, including Hannah, left 300 Jews in a burning church during the bombings and raids. However, one person managed to survive and wrote about the crimes. In the class, the following day, one of Michael's classmates becomes emotionally charged and struggles to understand the situation. He accuses Michael of staring at Hannah constantly and tells him he would love to shoot them all. Michael goes to the Auschwitz camp and tries to find answers. As the court hearing continues, Hannah continues to incriminate herself, telling the judges they didn't unlock the doors of the church because they were responsible for keeping order. The defendants made an allegation against Hannah, incriminating her as the guard in charge, as evidenced by the written report. The judge asks for a piece of her handwriting to confirm this. Michael realizes that Hannah cannot read or write. However, Hannah just admits to writing the report. Later, Michael gets reprimanded by Roll for not attending more seminars. However, Michael reveals he has information about one of the defendants but hesitates to share it. Still, Roll tells him he has an obligation to share it with the court regardless of what may happen. Roll tells him he should speak to her, even though Michael doesn't want to. Later, Michael plans on visiting Hannah but hesitates and leaves instead. He returns to his dormitory and makes love to his female classmate. Michael goes back to the court hearing. While the other defendants are sentenced to 4 years in prison, Hannah gets life imprisonment. Michael breaks down in tears. It's 1976, and Michael has a young daughter, Julia. They're going somewhere on a train. They arrive at Michael's home to break the news to his mother. Michael is getting a divorce. Michael's mother begins to cry, telling him why he is so unhappy. Michael explains he couldn't come back to town, not even for his father's funeral. Michael assures his mother that his wife will be fine since she's a state prosecutor and earns more than him. However, his mother tells him she's worried about him. Michael revisits his old room and reads through Homer's Odyssey. One day, Hannah suddenly receives mail. Inside, it's a recording device. When Hannah plays it, it's Michael's voice, reading to her Homer's Odyssey. Michael painstakingly did this for days, making multiple tapes in the process. As the days go by, Michael continues to read more books for Hannah. She breaks down in tears as she listens to Michael's voice. Eventually, Hannah decides she wants to learn how to read. She borrows a book for the first time in the library, The Lady with the Little Dog, and reads along with Michael's recordings. It is now 1980 in West Berlin. Michael receives a mail. Inside is a simple letter. "Thanks for the latest, kid. I really liked it." Hannah expects a reply from Michael, but he doesn't write her back. He collects them instead. It is now 1988, and Hannah is about to be released very soon. She has been in prison for more than 20 years. Michael gets a call from the prison, telling Michael Hannah has no family or friends, and he's the only contact she has. The woman tells Michael that Hannah has no future outside. Michael thanks her and ends the call. Still indecisive, Michael struggles to sleep. Eventually, he goes to prison and gets greeted by Louisa Brenner, the woman he spoke to earlier. She tells Michael that Hannah has let herself go in the past few years. Michael finally reunites with Hannah, but she looks very different now. He struggles to hold her hand. He tells her he's given her a job as a tailor and a small place to live in. Hannah is grateful for this. Michael shares he got married and had a daughter, but the marriage didn't last. He then asks Hannah if she ever thought more about the past, pointing to the crimes she committed. However, Hannah insists it doesn't matter anymore because the dead are still dead. Michael struggles to comprehend why she doesn't feel any regret. She asks if he'll still read to her, but Michael tells her he won't anymore. Michael then tells her he'll come back next week and leaves without giving her a hug. Heartbroken, Hannah arranges her table and stands on a pile of books. Next week, Michael arrives in prison to collect Hannah. However, Louisa tells him that Hannah offed herself already. Hannah left a message. It reads, "There is money in the old tea tin. Give it to Michael Berg. He should send it, alongside the 7,000 marks in the bank, to the daughter who survived the fire. It's for her. She should decide what to do with it. And tell Michael I said hello." Michael finally breaks down in tears and accepts the tin can. Later, Michael meets with Mather, the survivor. He tells her that Hannah was illiterate for most part of her life. Unsure of what to say, Mather tells Michael to be honest about his relationship with Hannah. Michael confesses he had a short relationship with Hannah when he was 16. Mather probes further, but Michael's silence speaks about how deeply in love he is with Hannah. Mather then tells him he should read more literature because she can't help him with anything. Hannah committed terrible crimes, after all. Michael then gives her the tea tin that Hannah left. Mather remembers her time in the camp when she kept a tin similar to Hannah's. Inside were sentimental things like the dog's hair and opera tickets. Mather gives the money to Michael. Michael suggests he give it to a Jewish organization that promotes literacy. He asks Mather if he should do it under Hannah's name. Mather tells him it's up to him. As Michael leaves, Mather puts the tin on her desk beside her family picture. It is now January 1995. Michael drives with Julia to a nearby church, the church he and Hannah visited during their cycling tour. Michael shows Julia the grave of Hannah Schmitz. Julia wonders who she is, and Michael begins telling her as they walk through the yard. What a sad and complex situation. Although, I would have easily revolted if I was in Hannah's position. What about you?